and I'll post the recording online later. So today we're going to talk about obsoletions and OBO ontologies. I put together some slides just because I know we don't normally do slides, but it just seemed easier in this case. And then we'll convert this into like a nice markdown document later. So we have 11 slides. I prefer actually looking at slides in the presenter mode. So I'm going to do that. Okay, so today we're going to talk about obsoletions and OBO ontologies. And before we get started, I wanted to point us to the discussion board. And actually, if everyone could go there, I'm going to put the link in the chat. So demo what we're doing here. So we have a discussion board. So I think some of you we have a couple of people who've requested some topics. But so this discussion board is a place for us to post topics that we'd like to see in future sessions. And then we can vote on them. And maybe it's not super intuitive how to vote, but you just push this little button here. So if you want to vote for what is a subclass, you can vote here. If you want to unvote, you can, I already voted for that. So if you want to unvote, you can just take your vote off by just clicking the button for a second time. So could you all just take a second and go to this link and vote on topics that you're interested in? Because we want to figure out what's most interesting for everybody for our next session in 2 weeks. And yes, Nico saying, please vote. 4 and 7 are duplicates. Let's see, how to create a new ontology from scratch, and what is an application project ontology?
No, the next one. Yeah.
Oh, you're right. How to create an ontology from scratch. Yeah, these look like they're duplicated. That's okay.
I'll just vote for the ones with the most. I'll vote for 7.
Yeah, we'll just add these votes up, so that one has 4. I don't know. But also you can add new topics too. So you can say new discussion, just click this button here, and then select a category and just put tutorial request, and then just add title and content about what you might want to hear about. We have a lot of existing content developed already, as you know, so we could go over other topics again, or we can, if you have other topics that we don't have material created for, you can ask for that and we can develop material as long as we know how to do those things. So okay, thanks. I see people are voting. So this is great. And you don't have to do it all right now. You can come back later and either upvote or downvote things. So that's great. And then, we should do this every session. We should think about what we want to learn about in future sessions and note them on the discussion board and vote on them. So then we'll know what kind of content to deliver to you all. Okay, so back to obsoletions. This is what I'm going to talk about today. So I'm going to talk about either obsoleting or merging terms in an ontology. So and talk about when we would obsolete or when we would merge. Give you an overview of kind of the obsolescence workflow. I'm going to, oftentimes my examples are going to come from Mondo, since that's the ontology I primarily work on, but I'll try to give examples from other ontologies or talk about it more generally. So this can apply to the ontologies that you all work on. Ellen asked if there's anything that Nico and I don't know. Thank you for the compliment. I would say that's more true for Nico, but
you guys are both amazing. Sorry.
Thank you. That's so sweet. Then I'm going to talk about how to document the obsolescence reasons. We should always have clear documentation as to why we obsoleted a term. Make sure that gets built into the ontology. Then I'll do a couple of demos and show you how to obsolete a class. And I'm going to use Mondo as an example. And I'm going to show you how to obsolete a class and also how to merge classes. And then I'm going to ask someone to volunteer to practice this themselves, or we can all do it together. Everyone, if I mentioned in the email, the reminder email yesterday, to download the cell ontology if you didn't already have it. So if someone wants to demonstrate at the end, we can turn the tables and someone else can present and go through the workflow, or we could all go through the workflows individually on our computers. We can just see where we're at the end. So okay, so first I'm going to talk about obsoletions. So when would you obsolete a term? So basically you want to obsolete a term when the term is no longer needed, but there's various reasons why a term may not be needed, and it can be kind of contentious sometimes if someone thinks a term should be obsoleted or not. So many of you probably seen long discussions on trackers and on the issue boards about whether something should be obsoleted or not. But in the OBO ontologies, we never delete a term. So once a term has been added to the ontology, we want to just obsolete it and not actually delete it. So then that ID is tied to that term forever. So it kind of creates like the provenance and the record of that we had that term in the ontology. We made the conscious decision that we didn't want to include it. And it happens, I would say pretty rarely, but sometimes you may want to reinstate that term after it's been obsoleted. So that's some of the rationale for we're not just deleting it. You just want to keep a record that it existed in the first place and that it was properly decided that you didn't want it.
I would also add here that especially for many of you that deal with templates and DOS-DP type systems, one very important reason for obsoleting is you since people might have used the term in some system before, you never want to come in the situation that you create a new term with an old ID again. So that's why that's another reason to keep obsoleting and keeping the IDs and saying that they are obsolete, so that you do not in the future accidentally create a new ID thinking this term didn't exist yet, and then cause confusions in other databases downstream where the same ID was used for an entirely different term.
Yeah, very good point. So some examples of when to obsolete a term. So using Mondo as an example. So in Mondo, you probably know or may know that we integrate a lot of source ontologies to create Mondo. So we have terms that come from other disease terminologies like OMIM or Orphanet or GARD, which is a rare disease database. And so a lot of times we follow what the sources are doing. So OMIM are like the experts on Mendelian and inherited diseases. And if they've decided that a certain disease is no longer considered a disease, sometimes they merge it into another one, then we'll follow what they have done alongside of some of the other sources that we pull from. Sometimes the classes can be considered out of scope for that ontology, and maybe they should be in another ontology, or maybe they shouldn't even just be an ontology class at all. Like for example, in Mondo, we have a lot of classes in Mondo that kind of border the fine line between a disease and a phenotype. So sometimes we'll review those terms and say, okay, this is not truly a disease, this is more of a phenotype. So we'll obsolete some of those terms, and then we'll point to the phenotypic term and say, this is actually the term you should use instead. And there's a case in the cell ontology where this term was added to the cell ontology lobe nucleus, but then it also existed in Go as a cellular component. And the decision was made that this wasn't actually a proper cell type that should be in the CL, it should just be in the gene ontology as a cellular component. So that got obsoleted in the cell ontology. And then a lot of times, sometimes terms may be created kind of like as grouping classes. So I think there's some cases like this in the cell ontology, or maybe there's cases like this, like in Uberon and definitely in Mondo, where the term is kind of created just for the purpose of grouping and classifying terms, and maybe considered not a viable class, so then that can be obsoleted as well. There's lots of different reasons why terms are obsoleted, but it's basically considered that they're no longer in scope for the ontology that they're in. Sabrina's asking, what's the difference between obsolescence and deprecation? I was just thinking about that. I didn't add that into the slides, but that's a great question. And to be honest, I think my understanding is that they're the same, but I think there's some subtle difference. Nico, do you know?
I'm trying to dig out the document where I detailed this. So basically, there's a lot of confusion around the words obsolete and deprecated. And for our purposes, so I will find a document where I wrote this up and I will send it to you. But for our purposes, we should just not think in terms of deprecation at all. We should only ever think in terms of obsolescence. And I will tell you in a second why. So you can just continue while I dig up the documents.
Okay, great. And yeah, the next talking about mergers, and this we'll kind of address Ellen's question. If you find two independent terms which are synonyms, then you would assume a merge makes sense. Yeah, so exactly, that's exactly right. So when to merge, if so if you have two duplicate terms that have the same meaning that come from different sources, they can be merged. Or I mean, I think that's more applicable to Mondo where they come from different sources, but like, or I guess it could be really applicable to any ontology, like the cell ontology could have two different curators adding these two different terms, and then later it's recognized that they should be, they actually are referring to the same thing and they should be merged. So yeah, in this case, one term is obsoleted and then it has a replaced by annotation that points to the term that it's merged with. And Ellen is asking which term, which label should be used as a priority and which one should be kept as a synonym. There's no like easy answer for that. I think that's kind of subjective. So I guess if it was really questionable which label to use, I think it would probably be best just to bring that up on the tracker and kind of go with the community consensus. Sometimes I feel like in the cases that I've done a lot of mergers, it's kind of obvious which one is more widely used. I think just doing kind of like a little research and looking like through the literature and trying to find which term is preferentially used is kind of all you can do. And then yeah, because you can only always have just one label, and then but then the other label can be added as an exact synonym. Okay, Nico can answer our question about deprecated versus obsolete. Go ahead.
Okay, can you go to this site here? So this is not like any, this is for our Mondo purposes, but it has links so that you can also see it there. So basically, a deprecated term, and there's also this link if you're interested in the more wider discussion on Stack Overflow. So a deprecated term, technically speaking, means that the term is still in use but will be removed soon. So it's like a similar kind of meaning. So you have this kind of phrase deprecated a lot in software engineering when you are deprecating, for example, a function in a library. It's still in the library, you can still use it, but it's discouraged to use. So this is more similar to what we internally in Mondo call obsolescence candidates. So terms we are about to obsolete in the future.
Would that also, sorry, would that also serve as sort of a warning to anybody who's currently using that term for some reason, and like, hey, maybe you should look to this other term that is similar?
Yeah, so in fact, there is no good thing in OBO in any ontology at all for deprecation. So we have a quite good system for obsolescence, which Nicole is describing. So once a term is already obsoleted and with metadata that tells you where to look, but for deprecation, basically, as far as I know, Mondo is the only ontology that even does something similar, that where they warn people before the release that a term is going to be obsoleted in the future. And yeah, so this is not very well standardized in anywhere. So this is something for everyone here that is interested in metadata to think about, but it's not really done. Just want to emphasize here that we are using this OWL deprecated relationship really in the sense of OWL obsoleted, not in the sense of OWL deprecated. So it's a very confusing terminological difference here. That's it. Thanks.
I think that Go maybe uses the that has obsolescence date and stuff too. But yeah, a lot of the practices that we do in Mondo are based on what was already established in Go. So another good place to look, like our Mondo documentation is pretty well documented at this point, but the Go is also a really good place to look for kind of this industry standards of what to do. And a lot of the documentation that we have in Mondo is just directly taken from Go and just adapted to Mondo. Okay, so with mergers, so we have two duplicate terms that we want that have the same meaning and we want to combine them into one term. We can merge them. So then also note that changes in the term label or definition that do not alter the meaning of the term do not usually lead to obsolescence. So if you want to just relabel the term or just make minor revisions to the definition, then in that case, you wouldn't want to obsolete or consider merging the term. We would just want to make those kinds of changes. And depending on your user base, they may want to be informed or warned about label changes. So I think probably the most typical way to warn about label changes is just to create a ticket. And then I have on the Mondo tracker, we have like a label for the tickets that says relabel or something like that. But one of our conversations with one of our users in Mondo, he explained to us that some of the curators for one of the groups that we work with interpret label changes as major changes to the term. So just keep that in mind that your users may be more surprised by label changes than you might expect. So make sure that you document on the tracker that you're going to change a label or definition, and be clear that doesn't alter the meaning of the term. But if the term's definition changes, if you have a new term that the definition is going to change, then the obsolescence may be warranted in creating a new term instead. So we're going to talk a little bit more about using the consider or the replace by. So when we obsolete terms in Mondo, if we just obsolete them and not replacing them and merging them with another term, we have a consider annotation and then point to that new term ID. So like if we obsoleted, like in the example above, if we obsoleted pathologic fracture, there's no other term in Mondo that's called pathologic fracture or has that same kind of the same meaning as whatever this Mondo term had. So we should say consider, and then we pointed to an HPO term that is the phenotypic fracture term. Or if a term is merged, then you want to say the obsoleted term is replaced by the term that it was merged into. And I'll show you some examples of those in a few slides. And then another thing that we do, which is not very common practice, but just something to be aware of, is born obsolete. So you can add new classes to an ontology that are considered to be in scope with the domain of the ontology, but they are against the kind of inclusion criteria that you may have for your ontology. So you can add terms to your ontology as born obsolete where they're immediately added as obsolete classes. So I've never seen this happen in any ontology besides in Mondo, but we had a use case in Mondo. Whoops. We had a use case in Mondo where we wanted to bring, since we're merging in other ontology terms, other terms from other terminologies, we went to align with Orphanet and they use some grouping classes, but we take a different classification approach from them. So we didn't want to have these as proper disease classes, so we just included them as born obsolete. So they were immediately added just as obsolete terms. So I want to go over our obsolescence workflow that we do in Mondo, and this is a little deviates a little bit from the Go obsolescence workflow, and I'll kind of tell you how our workflows deviate a little bit. But I'm not really familiar with the obsolescence workflows for other ontologies, if there's anything kind of varies that kind of official or standardized. I think I'll just go over what we have in Mondo and then my impression of how this works in a lot of other use cases. But I think in every OBO ontology, you have an obsolescence request on GitHub. And in Mondo, we have tags that either are for obsolete or to merge. So we make sure to separate that either it's an obsolescence where you're just going to obsolete the class and it's not going to be replaced by anything else, or it's a merge where, oh yeah, Go might use alt IG. I think you're right, Sean. Yeah, I'll go over that. There's a point to some drama.
So what's the difference between replaced by and alt ID?
I think alt ID is, so if you obsolete if you obsolete a class and then you merge it into another term, you keep the old ID, like the Go ID on the new term. Do you know what I mean?
Okay. Okay.
So like in
Okay.
Mondo,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
The other way. Okay.
yeah, in Mondo, we just keep the ID on the obsoleted term. I guess I have seen that. I think HPO does that too, where sometimes you see they have the proper ID for the term, and then it has like lots of alternate IDs, which I think came from like the obsoleted classes. But in so the basic obsolation workflow, I think this applies to every ontology where if you want to obsolete a term, it should be documented on the tracker. No one should obsolete a term without any kind of discussion on the tracker and the opportunity for people to kind of comment and say yes or no, please don't obsolete this. I'm using it. So there's obsolation requests on the GitHub tracker. We have tags that say obsolete or merge. I think almost every ontology has some kind of tag that's something along this line. And in the cell ontology, it's obsolation request. In Mondo, and I think they do this in Go too, but I'm not 100% sure. In Mondo, we have a workflow now where we add a tag to the term, an annotation to the term itself in Protege that adds it to the subset as an obsolation candidate. And then we add a scheduled for obsolation on or after. So when it confers it, Go does the same. Thanks. So based on some requests from our users, we used to just put issues on the tracker and say, tag them as obsolete or merge candidates, and then send out an email to the user list. And this is what Go does too. Send out an email to the user list saying, okay, these are the terms that are candidates for obsolation. We will obsolete them within the next 2 weeks, if unless there's any feedback or requests not to do so. Now we've been adding in Mondo, this obsolation candidate annotation, and now we're waiting for 2 months before we obsolete a class. So we'll add, so if we have any requests for obsoletations or merges, and on the Mondo tracker, we'll go to those terms and add these subset tags. We actually do this through a robot template too. So if anybody wants to see that, we can show you that. But we just have a robot template to add in. We add in this obsolation candidate subset tag, the obsolation date, which is 2 months into the future. And then Nico has set up a workflow now that when we do our release, it generates a report that sparkles for all the classes that are tagged as obsolation candidates and creates a spreadsheet that has the name of the term, the link to the ticket, the obsolation date. So now our users can, at every release, they can download this TSV file and see which obsolation candidates are coming up for Mondo. And then they have 2 months to, 2 months to let us know if there's any issues that they want to keep the term and not have it be obsoleted. So then, so we have to go through this workflow. Nico just linked to the TSV file so you can see an example. Also not shown in panel 2 here is we also add a see also to the GitHub ticket. So in the query too, it queries for the see alsos and it brings down the GitHub tickets. And that's actually really handy. We keep those on there even after the terms are obsoleted. So we can have a record back to the ticket and the discussion and reasoning for why things were obsoleted. And I find linking the GitHub tickets to any edits I do in Mondo has been immensely helpful. Yeah, Nico says very good practice to keep GitHub links on terms. I've started to do it with any kind of edits I do to terms in Mondo, and Sabrina's doing the same thing. And it's so helpful for us to be able to, when you go in and why did this happen? And then you go back to the ticket, it's like, oh yeah, I did this. Yeah, we use RDFSC also. So, okay, so once we have, so someone's requested an obsolation, we've added the subset tags to the terms, and then when we're approaching the date before the release, so like any ticket that's labeled for obsolation in the April release, Sabrina and I will work on these and later in this month in March. We'll obsolete the terms or merge them, and we'll show you the workflow that we use to do that. And then we include on every obsoleted term, we either include a replace by if it's a merger or consider We have a reason which we add as comments, give a little bit more, or we can, or sometimes we'll add comments with a little more detail about why we obsoleted the class, but then we also have standardized obsolescence reasons, which I think there's an annotation that says has obsolescence reason, and I'll show you that in a couple slides. And then we'll link to the GitHub ticket via the RDFS also. And then, as you know, standard workflows, we'll do all the changes in the edit file, and then the obsolescence will be visible in the next release. And in Mondo, we release on a monthly basis around the first of the month. So depending on whatever release cycle your ontology is on, and then that's when you'll see the obsoleted terms. Yeah, just want to emphasize how we try to document all the obsolescence reasons. So there's actually an annotation, I think this comes from IAO, that has obsolescence reason. So, and then there's a number of individuals, and these come from, I believe these come from RO maybe. So we intended to do this in Mondo as use has obsolescence reason with a standardized individual, but we've actually only been doing just free text right now because we had some issues with the file behaving funny when we were using the actual individuals. But I try to use standardized free text in the, and when I add the obsolescence reason, so like if the term is merged. So yeah, these include things that are not just applied, that don't just apply to obsolescence, but and this I think we can add. I did try to add another one that was out of scope, and I think that got hung up on a tracker and hasn't been fully. Oh, maybe I can't remember if it was. It couldn't have been RO. That doesn't seem right. Maybe it was Cobb. I can't remember now where we added it, but yeah, we can add standardized obsolescence reasons as individuals. So if you click on, if you're in the annotation window, click on has obsolescence reason, then you have to click on entity IRI. Normally by default, you'd be in the literal tab where you type the free text, but you have to click on entity IRI and then individuals and then select one of these. And then we add, like I said, we add the C also to the ticket where we have the link to the GitHub ticket. You can add an additional comment that gives more explanation. This one doesn't actually have the has obsolescence reason in this screenshot, but it might be just down lower. And then, yeah, so we have, and then the standard practices, we have the al deprecated equals true and the term replaced by, and the obsolete precedes the label. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna just go through this workflow with you and show you how this is done in Mondo. So I'm gonna go through a demo to obsolete a term in Mondo. So I'm just gonna do this here. So I think this is a term that we actually do want to obsolete. So let me go quickly and look, because I'll just do this in for real life. There should be a ticket that is requesting. Oh, no, okay. Okay, this will just be a demo then. Actually on the, if there is a ticket for this, it should be on the link to the, yeah, it's linked to the class itself. Yeah, so in advance, we add these, we add all this all these additional annotations to the term. So via our robot template, we just say that, so there was a ticket here that asked for this term to be deleted or to be obsoleted. Because yeah, these are terms in that come from OMIM, but they're not actually truly diseases. So this is a trait or legacy term from OMIM and not suitable for Mondo. So so the obsolescence workflow is actually pretty quick. So that this has the obsolescence candidate tag and the schedule for obsolescence at the beginning of April, which is coming up. So I can go ahead and obsolete this term. I'm going to do this on a branch. So I'm just going to new branch. Oh wait, I need to pull. Okay, so I'm just going to create a new branch, and I always name my branches after the issue I'm working on. So that was issue 3637. Okay, so the obsolescence, yeah, very straightforward. So first I want to check and make sure this term doesn't have any children. So if it gets obsoleted, it's not going to like leave dangling classes that have no parents, orphan the terms. So I just need to go, I just use this plugin that's called Make Entity Obsolete. And Sabrina's question about the difference between obsolete and deprecate is a good question. Protege has these two options here. I always use the Make Entity Obsolete, even though it does use obsolete and deprecate kind of synonymously, because if you hover over this, it says, it has a little tooltip that comes up that says deprecate the selected entity and removes, where'd it go? Well, it removes the defining axioms. And then the deprecate entity just deprecates. So I guess it doesn't remove anything. I always use this Make Entity Obsolete. Does everybody have this in their Protege? I think it comes with like Protege 5.5. Okay, so I'm just going to click this button. This is really nice because then it just basically takes care of everything for you without you having to do it manually. So then once it's obsoleted, it kind of just disappears from the view. So I go back to my search bar, and since I just searched on that ID, it will show me where it is. And then so in Mondo, so it automatically adds the label, makes it obsolete, then whatever the label was. I'll leave the comment here, and I'll leave the C also here. This is kind of a nice thing since we already added all these annotations to the file or to the term before when it was just a candidate for obsolation. These are already here. These are things that we would add otherwise if they weren't already here. In Mondo's case, we changed these to, this is something that's only to Mondo, where we have these kind of equivalence axioms. Now I'll note that this is an obsolete equivalent class. Sean didn't know this existed. Yeah, can you please check and make sure that you have that on your version of Protege? Because once
I have it.
You do? Okay, good. So yeah, so we had added these subset tags, and we no longer want to have these on here because they're no longer a candidate. They actually are truly obsolete. And we want to remove the scheduled for obsolation date on here because it's happening, it's real. Yeah, so this automatically adds the al deprecated true. It removed the parent class, so that's been removed, and that's everything for the obsolation. So I'm just going to save this because this is actually a real thing we need to do, and I'm going to create a pull request. So then check the diff too. I just started doing the diff side by side, and it's quite nice. So I can check and make sure everything looks okay. So I just see the changes on my term. I don't see any kind of spurious diffs or any weird things have happened. In the next demo I'm going to merge terms together, and I'll show you how it's a little weird in the beginning, and then we have to go and clean it up. But yes, everything looks, so yeah, checking the diff is really critical. Make sure this is what you expected. So the name is changed to just the obsolete version of the name. Yeah, that looks good. I removed the subset tag to make an obsolation candidate. Yep. I updated these XREF sources, so these look fine. We didn't touch the C also, that just stayed there, so that's good. And then we removed the obsolation date, and we added the is obsolete is true. So that looks all good. So I'll just say obsolete. And then another thing I like to do is instead of writing it out, I just copy this. So that always kind of ends up being pretty handy for me, and I like it. And then remember, you can always use it as in the Go documentation. They call these magic words: close, closes, fix, fixes, and then link to the ticket number. And this is another kind of check I have for myself to remember that I'm on a branch and not just committing to master accidentally. I always look up here to see what the issue number was, and if it says master, then I realize I didn't actually go onto a branch and I meant to. And you can always, if you're accidentally on master, you want to go to a branch, you can still do it even after you've done your edits. Just go to the current branch and create new branch, and then it'll ask you if you want to move your changes from master to your branch, and you just say yes. And that's really nice too, because the first time I ever did that, I was worried I was going to have to do everything all over again, but it wasn't the case. So that's my demo on how to do an obsolation. Does anyone have any questions before I demonstrate a merger? Okay, so we're going to move on. Let's see, where's my slide? Okay, so merging terms.
Just one question, Nicole. Do you ever undo something that the default protege obsolete workflow applies? So like, let's say they move some annotations, but in fact, you're like, maybe I didn't want to move those annotations. So, or is it in all cases where you are using it according to what you expect and you never really need to do any manual tweaks afterwards?
Not with obsolation, no, I never need to do any manual tweaks.
Okay.
But you did teach me that recently, how to actually undo. I'll demonstrate that in this next round of demo. How to, yeah, that's a really cool thing to learn, how to undo changes in GitHub Desktop, which is something I didn't know until recently that you could do. Okay, so now I'm going to demo merging terms. So some initial considerations when you're merging terms. Yeah, so make sure that you know all the consequences that the merger will cause. So if you're also as if you're obsoleting a term, if you're merging a term, you want to look at the children term and make sure that they do not refer to that the children term. In Mondo, we do a lot of multiple parentage. So if you have a child term that's just a child of the term that's about to be obsoleted, and you need to make sure it has another parent. If it's getting merged, it should, the children using this command, it should be merged into the child should be reclassified under the new parent that the obsoleted term is merged into. If you're doing this manually, you'll need to you'll have to reassign the parent for the new class that you're merging into. Yeah, in some cases, a simple merge of the terms may result in equivalent classes of the child term. So you need to make sure, basically, you just need to make sure that you understand what's going to happen to the children term when you merge the terms, and make sure you kind of update and edit accordingly. Another consideration when obsoleting or merging terms, the other day I looked at a PR where an obsoleted term was being used in the logical definitions of another term. So if the terms are merged, I think I use this command. So I'll show you how this command works. But I think that if a term is merged, it'll automatically, at least with this command, it'll automatically be updated in the logical definitions. But if you were, okay. So like if this term I just obsoleted was being used in a logical definition of another term, then we would need to, like, say we obsoleted like Farron, this is like a Uberon term, but say this was a Mondo term. If we obsoleted this term in Mondo, then we'd have like this, this would show up with just like a strike through it, and then you would have a build failure. So you need to make sure that the terms that you're obsoleting are not being used in any other way, or if like say we obsoleted adrenal cortex disorder and this only had the parent adrenal cortex disorder, then that would become an orphan term and you'd see it hanging out up here. And then that would also cause a build failure, at least in Mondo, we have text for that. So yeah, so just when you're merging terms, you definitely want to take in consideration the kind of downstream consequences of what you're doing. So I'm going to demonstrate merging two terms in Mondo using a command built in OWL tools. And I've never tried this in another ontology, so I can't say if this works in other ontologies, but if anybody ever wants to use these OWL tool commands for their ontology to merge terms together, I am sure Nico can get you set up. So I'm just going to demonstrate this for you. So I just went on to a new branch. I'm going to close Protege because it's going to ask me to reload after this is done. So this is the command, and I'm just going to start running it, and then I'll explain it because it takes a few minutes to run. So this is the command. So this uses OWL tools, and basically it's saying go to the mondo edit.obo file and obsolete replace this ID. So this is the ID that Sabrina said that we needed to merge. So and it has to be in this query format. I've made the mistake a lot of times where I just copy and paste out of Protege. It always has an underscore instead of the colon. So it has to have be in this query format with a colon. So this is the term I want to obsolete, and then I want it to be replaced with this ID right here. So this is the replacement term. So this is the command. So I just actually have a spreadsheet where I just paste in these two IDs, and then I have a concatenate formula that builds me this this command, and I just run this. I know this -O and -F mean something, but I don't know what. Nico, could you explain that? Do you know?
To be honest, no one exactly knows. The -F means format, and just says that the resulting file should also be serialized in OBO format. The -O, no idea what this means, but in any case, our tools commands have super obscure parameters very often attached to them, and many people don't know what they mean, and they're also not documented anywhere. So we try to not use our tool as much as possible.
In this case, though, it's very, very handy. So this is what my spreadsheet looks like. I just, yeah, at a minimum, I'll just paste in the two IDs that I want to merge together, and then I just copy and paste from above, and I have a concatenate formula just to build my command for me. But also, I mean, you could just take this command and just paste in your IDs here without having to use a template like I do. So this takes a couple minutes. Oh, it's done already. Okay. So yeah, so now we can look at the diff. And so first thing, what do we notice here at the diff? So it looks like this had some children. Oh, this was a parent to some classes. So this is getting, so this, whatever this class was a child of the syndactyly type 2. Now it's a child of the term that was merged with. Looks like had a few children. Looks like this whole syndactyly type 2 term has been deleted. Now it's all the annotations on the syndactyly type 2 term were deleted, and now the term is just named obsolete, is obsolete true, and replaced by the term I replaced it by. And then all the annotations from the deleted term, or from the obsoleted term, not deleted, never deleted, are moved over to the term that we wanted to merge with. So it's being, all the annotations were migrated over there. So as you can probably see, that if you could imagine that if you had to manually move all of these annotations in Protege, this would take you a minute. So this is really nice. It's kind of automates everything. But here we see this weird change here in the diff. This is not expected or wanted. So I actually know what this is though. So this, for some reason, this happens because it moves the ID from this term, so the 19 whatever it was, to the new term. And then once I go into Protege and delete that, then it fixes that weird header up there. So so this is really nice because it automates a lot of this process, but it doesn't automate everything. So I have to go, oops, I'm about to open Mondo. So I had to go into the file and then kind of clean it up a little bit. And I'll show you that as soon as the file is open.
So the reason why just for like context, so why does some stuff suddenly show up in this OWL axiom header up top in the OBO format? So this is when you're trying to add something to your ontology that is not conformant to the OBO profile. And very often that is not a problem, but in these kinds of cases, it suggests actually a bug in the workflow itself. And I think, Nicole, it would be really, really useful, because no one will be able to remember what you're fixing now if we document the main reasons why after an obsolescence workflow run something could be added to the OWL axiom header and how to fix it afterwards.
That's a great idea. Yeah, let's do that. So yeah, so the reason that this shows up is because the two IDs were merged into the one term. So I think in the case that someone brought up earlier, how Go uses alt IDs, like this, in this case, if this is what we wanted to do. So I can see this is the original ID, the 21651. This could be the alt ID if that's what we did, but we don't. So I just delete this. And then once I delete this, actually, and I save, this will fix the weird header in the diff. So now I can see it looks much better. So we only have 11 minutes left. And does anyone want the opportunity to try this on their own? I have a ticket in the cell ontology that actually is a real ticket that needs to be obsoleted. So does somebody want to go through the workflow and do this, sharing their screen in Protege? Or we could all just independently open up our Protege and do it independently without sharing our screens. What do you all think? Or I can just do another demo, just showing you with the cell ontology. Sean, would you be willing to?
Exactly. I was going to suggest that you just use someone like Sean, who's already very experienced, to walk through this, but also maybe ask also for opportunity for asking questions at this point, just so that we don't run entirely out of time before we.
Sorry, I was writing stuff for the ticket. What if do you want me to do something?
Yeah, I do want to share your screen and go through obsolescence in the cell ontology.
Sure. Could you link the ticket and let me clean up my desktop a bit? It's super messy at the moment.
Okay. Okay, I'll keep sharing my screen while you're doing that and just show you what I'm doing. So I'm just going to commit this, but actually in Mondo, I still need to do a few more steps in cleaning up this. So, so I'm going to say addresses. Well, actually, I'm going to say close because once I merge this, I'll be done with it. 4, 2, 8, 5. I love too how in GitHub desktop, if you start typing the ticket number and you like type the wrong one, it'll it gives you like this little preview of the text, so you can say like, oh yeah, merge syntactically too. Like, oh, I have the right ticket. And I mean, sometimes I accidentally, not often, but I have accidentally tagged the wrong ticket. That kind of creates some confusion. So GitHub desktop has a lot of nice features. And this isn't done, so I'm going to create a pull request as a draft so I don't accidentally merge this when it's not done. Are you ready, Sean?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
So yeah, I'm just creating a new branch at the moment. All right, so this ticket. I'm gonna try using Protege obsolescence.
Yeah, do it. Oh, this term has like no annotations on it. That's so weird.
So make it obsolete.
Yeah. Oh yeah, so
Oh my
you
gosh.
just got it up on the top. That's a good move too.
Nice, and it clears out. I guess it clears out all the logical things automatically, which is nice.
Yeah, super nice, right?
And then I have to add this. I have a C also.
I think it's the next one that's a camel case or snake case. Yeah.
And is this, sorry, I didn't read.
I guess we're not set up for obsolescence reasons in CL, but maybe.
Yeah,
maybe
and then
this is
these,
Oh
have
yeah.
to be changed. Are these,
very good.
this doesn't look like, these looks like geo terms. So, yeah, that's a geo term.
Oh.
We need to go
That's
create
good.
a ticket on geo then.
Yep. You don't need to do that actually proactively. It's a very good thing to do this, but yeah, this is great that you looked at this. Yeah, so if you are super nice, that's kind of like one of these things that you should consider when you're doing obsolescence in your own ontology, is how can this affect other people? So there may be databases that use your terms in curation. So it's very expensive for them to update their data tables. So in Mondo, we try also to protect certain terms against obsolescence so that that some of our key users don't get this problem. And here we have a more obvious thing where another ontology is actually using this term in their ontology, and what we need to do is we need to communicate to them what they should do instead, like so usually by providing a replace by, or by telling them why we obsoleted this class.
All right, in this case, it's the replacement is because it can be just replaced by a neuron and part, is it? In that case, do I put a replaced by annotation on it that says use this instead? Or do I just communicate this directly to?
So this is a very, very good question. So I would be even slightly hesitant to, let's make a pull request and discuss this, to make such a, you know, to obsolete this necessarily, but I guess that there is a good reason for obsoleting these grouping classes. So what the reason here is basically, and we want to get rid of an unnecessary grouping class. And here's the question of whether it is really that unnecessary as Paula claims. Maybe it is. So I would not, no, you would not put replaced by an our class expression. You can make a comment though, just an RDFS comment in Protege and just say this class is equivalent to this class expression, and in an ontology, yeah, just say this class was equivalent to this class expression or something like that, so that someone who looks at it in the future knows what to replace it with. But yeah, but I don't think there's a good practice for that yet. So it's another good thing we could think of standardizing.
Yeah, that's something I never have come across before.
All right, I will create a pull request and show. Let me just create the pull request first, and then oh my gosh. And I will put that this is.
Oh, and you have that thing in CL where you have all the
Strings.
Oh, yeah. I need to see that. Yeah. Yeah, for anyone else that edits CL, a lot of times when you initially create save your edits, it has all these weird string changes, and then there's just like a one-line command that you can run to clean that up, because the diffs are super messy otherwise. Very nice, Sean. Well done.
That's so beautiful. Very good.
Yeah.
So with a look at the time while you're still writing this issue up, for next time, as far as I can see the votes, I think that there are many people that are interested in learning how to create ontologies from scratch in a more principled fashion. We are currently also discussing making this the primary theme of the advanced part of the OBO tutorial at IGBO this year. So we will probably go into a bit more details there, but focusing more on imports management. So how do you exactly import properly other ontologies and how to think about this. But I think creating an ontology from scratch is a good subject. However, I need to think a little bit about whether we have the materials together to do this, or whether we need to do something else in between before we can go there. So yeah, sounds good. But everyone else vote on the there are 17 people here, but there are not 17 votes on the discussions.
Nico, isn't there documentation for creating a repo that we can use?
So I think that this tutorial is not so much about creating an ontology from scratch using ODK in the technical sense. It's also about like thinking about how to really build a new ontology from first principles. Like someone tells you we need an ontology about X, what do you do next? Not so much like this is how you bootstrap your ontology using the ODK, but actually you have a bunch of inputs, like you may have a data table from some curation, and someone told you can we turn this into an ontology, or someone tells you we do need an ontology for this and that domain. What are the next steps, or something a bit more, principled, like as in how do you think about this process? And I would kind of like to use the Sabrina's VBO work recently as like a prototypical example for why and how you should think about building a new ontology and what the problems are that happen with it. So I need to sit down with Sabrina, with you, to maybe hash out a tutorial based on VBO for the group here.
That'll be brilliant.
Awesome.
Yeah,
All right.
and
Sounds great.
if you're on that, could you also collect the stuff for oh my gosh, Judy.
Look at that puppy.
Sorry.
Dog sitter.
Sorry, could you also like maybe start templating something for documentation so that I can convert that, or if we can convert that into an explainer, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, that's good. Let's do that.
Thank you so much.
See you guys.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye.